Hi guys, I'm in my robe and my apron because most of life happens off the treadmill, especially when you're only running 15 seconds at a time like I do. Most of life happens in our everyday movement environments. A lot of it's at home, a lot of it's work, hiking, going to the bathroom. And I wanted to tie together, like, my greatest pain point has been hip instability. I remember even as a kid having dreams that my legs slid off. I would sit. I already had very strange hypermobility and hip symptoms I didn't realize were so weird, even as a kid, where I couldn't walk a mile when the other kids are just running around. So this, really getting at this feeling of rooted feet and hips near my, in my late 50s has been just one of the most exciting things of all. And I love how many of you out there are getting excited about movement rather than fearful of what's going to happen to you or fearful of aging. It's beautiful to have this community and this platform. So hip, if I hadn't studied the biomechanics myself, I would be listening to all the weird stress signals sent out there about how you have to try harder. And you need to tuck your tail and lift all these stress and fear-based responses to the worry of hip instability. So when I finally learned to look at the skeletal structure and then learn more about the forces working through our skeleton, I realized that the bones tell us a lot of the story. So this is a pelvis. This is the front side. This is the pubic bone, pubic symphysis. And then these bones tie in together for the sacroiliac joint here. And we know, well, I only learned that there's supposed to be the ability for this sweet little teeny swishy, sassy spine moving in a lot of our life, but things get stuck. We get stuck across, in certain resting positions. So I'm not saying this is easy to recover. I'm still really working on this. But what we can learn about hip vulnerability is the front side of this bony structure. It is not hooded. So if the front side of this structure is leading the way when we're landing with impact or we're jamming into that, then that is heading into this connective tissue here. A lot of people with their hips, they're kind of leaning backward a little bit when they're standing or they're walking or even running. The load, what's holding this in this socket is soft tissues, rather than when we have this forward leaning, anteverted, forward leaning, meaning juicy booty, juicy glutees. Then you see here, this bone has this protective hood. It's got this cap. So the forces are more feeding into the central system. They're feeding into the spine. Now, there's all this controversy, like what is anterior pelvic shift? What is anterior pelvic tilt? I'm not even going to get into that. I wanted to just show you one case because the other thing, right? I can hyperextend. You can do things that are excessive that are hanging in this ligament. And while you're doing those things, you might not even notice because you're practicing, you're so strong, your muscles are keeping things in place. But then let's say you just want to chill out a little bit and then you are left with some instability. So that's why I prioritize the hip first, strongest hip positions, right? So one place this shows up the most often is doing dishes. And when my African dance teacher, who's amazing, Yusuf, was here in my kitchen, I saw him doing dishes. He's got this beautiful fluidity to his movement and his power. And it showed up even while he did dishes. I'll show you the way most of us are probably doing dishes and then the way he just naturally, without even thinking about it, was doing them. So most of us, and I was even at one of my ancestral posture teachers, Esther Goklay's house, 10 years, 15 years ago, I can't remember. I was doing dishes at her house and we knew hinge, back chain, we knew this intellectually, but there I was washing dishes and I walk away with my belly all wet and I was like, how did that happen? So here we are, pressure, jamming into the weakest part of the hip joint. That only gets worse if I'm duck-footed Deb, which I was, right? So so then I got better. I was at least leaning forward, but my hips end up on the counter. And what that's doing is it's changing. I don't have to use all that much glute. If my feet are back, you can't even see that. Darn it. So my heels, this is a little better, but I'm probably doing more work in my back than in my glutes. But what I saw my teacher doing is, look how my shins here, his shins were vertical and his hips were way behind this line. And he's my height. He was my height. And he was doing the dishes like this, where the mass of his hips was behind the balance point, and the mass of his head was in front, and he had this springy, kind of resting into the backside of his body that those of us that haven't had the beautiful ancestral movement patterns interfered with, let's say. So what am I telling you to look for is get a candid shot of you doing dishes. See if you ended up leaning on the counter. Then even measure whether, this is so hard to see, guys. Measure, is your shin vertical? And is as much of you behind this line as is in front of this line? And you might start to become a back chain babe too. Well, I'm working on it. And okay, and guys, this is not a quick fix. You could do this quote in a quote wrong or stressed way. You could arch your back here. The other thing is, when we are small here, we fake it by arching our back. Hi, I've got great posture. Look at me. So know that this is a gentle reorganizing process, and we want to always feel some ability to yield. We're not doing some militaristic frozen thing, and we're never like pushing ourselves and trying too hard, okay? But do get those dishes done. They've been in the sink for 2 days.